and you do it on the order of millions upon tens of millions, then you can get in sort of a fuzzy idea about what's going to sort of head towards us, expressed in the language at an archetype level, because the words have a tendency to cluster themselves almost naturally, it seems, in these broad archetypes of, family, work, wealth, finance, country, diplomacy, those kind of things.
Right. I'm incredibly aware of an atmosphere of a person. Whenever, like what you said here, whenever you start using different words to describe something that you never used it to describe it like that before, you can usually tell that when something's wrong with somebody. Some of the staff members here are very good at kind of keeping their personal life at home and just going about their business at work and getting very professional. But I can tell there's little things that they do that just resonate with me, and I can tell something else is going on. And it drives people crazy because I'll stop them and be like, what's wrong? They're like, nothing. I'm just like, that's not true. What's wrong? And I'm like, why do you do that? How do you do this to us? And it's just the atmosphere of the person. So if it's if you're cataloging this in a language way, millions of people, you get some very interesting results.
Yes, we'll actually end up with about 60 million to about 80 million reads, that is to say, captures of language change that pass our processing, although we might read 120 million and throw out 30 or 40 million for various different reasons.
Right, indeed. Going back to just before the housing market crash, because it deals with the finance, did you see something in the data that basically, in a sense, led you to believe that there was going to be a problem in that sector? Or
oh, certainly.
Yes?
Actually, about 2 years before we had any real major breakthrough, so to speak, in the mainstream media. And that's how we judge our results, by the way, is we're not really getting forecasts to a certain extent. We're not getting forecasts of the event so much as we are getting a forecast of the language that will be used after the event and discussing it.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, somebody from the future holding up a big blurry newspaper, and we have to real quick write down what we see, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And you don't really get any pictures with it, so it becomes rather tedious.
Yes.
About 2 years out from the crack, if you will, of the subprime into the major media, we started becoming very much aware that we were within that process had begun.
Yes. I know that on our New Year's Eve broadcast, one of the things that you and I discussed was how things were going to look getting closer to the next New Year, and that things were definitely going to get worse before they got better. And sure enough, obviously, they've gotten worse. But that's not so hard. That wasn't so hard to predict. It was the areas that was so accurate that was very interesting, with the banks, with the job losses, with the supposed recovery of the economy being presented in the media, and all of this extremely accurate, and we're not even done with this year yet.
Yeah.
So
it becomes a little bit frustrating to me, because it's like, well, the data is saying this, maybe we can all stop it or change it. But it looks like some things are so cyclical and so large that we're fleas hanging onto the end of that dog as he tumbles down the hill.
Yes, absolutely. That was one of the things we discussed not too long ago. Me and another guest is, this is happening. Is there really a feasible way to stop it? I don't believe so. I think that, like you said, we just got to hang on and at least know it's coming to prepare personally, right?
Correct. I believe so, yes.
Yes. There's a whole host of things that I'd like to get to tonight. Now, your data, we always give you enough time to see how your past data has been, how accurate some of the things that we've touched on turn out to be, and give you enough time to compile some data. I'm so curious to know, how's the data looking right now?
Well, it looks like we need lots of pies and lots of it's going to get, again, a lot worse from many people's perspective before we get any kind of light at the end of the tunnel in a sense of the word better or even less chaotic.
Yes.
We're going to go through some very interesting times here.
Indeed.
It depends on what area. They're all going to be interrelated. That's the real problem, is that everything's going to hit at once.
Yes.
And at once is there going to be a narrow little focus that we all have to get through for probably 2 years, 2.5 years.
Yes. I've been told to really keep an eye on what's coming up here, which is the fiscal year, because that's when all the secrets kind of come out of what's going on behind the scenes, and that's whenever it's going to really get bumpy. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that as well. There's other issues relative to how the banking community has to do business, central bank to central bank, that will also coincidentally occur at that period of time that'll put further stress on the banking structure.
Yes.
But we have to acknowledge that the current fiscal paper debt, dollar-based, especially including the derivatives, infrastructure for our planet is itself bankrupt, and it is non-repairable.
Yes.
So it's kind of very much a question of a very large thing is going to collapse, and we have to decide where we're going to be individually while it occurs.
Right, exactly. All right, we're close to the top of the hour. I've got to take my quick break. When we come back, I'll talk to you a little bit about what was the kind of agreement that was formed here at the G20 as far as a kind of a global regulation of all companies, United States or wherever, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. Stick around, everybody. It's Badlands Radio. It's Friday night. We'll be back momentarily. We'll see you on the other side.
You're listening to Badlands Radio. Now, once again, your host, Captain Jack.
He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. And he said, I come from a land of love. Where did I go and mention love? Can't you hear?
Welcome back, everybody. Here we are, Friday night. Black Heart of Texas. Badlands Radio is the name of the game. My guest tonight is Clif from Half Past Human. Now, I've got an enormous amount of email here already with questions, and I'm going to do something that I think is going to be very, very helpful and useful to a lot of you out there that's listening, because this could facilitate a lot of real-time questions, because I know a lot of you have a lot of questions. Instead of waiting for my lazy butt to get over to my email and actually read it at the breaks, I'm going to give this a try. Now, we're broadcast on 99.9 FM here in Central Texas, and we're also on Friday nights on KRWM 106.9 FM HD3 in Seattle, Washington, which is through the CTR network. Now, if you would like to do this, and I encourage you to do this, hop on over to Contact Talk Radio. They have a fantastic chat room in there. You can jump in the chat room. You don't have to sign up for anything. You can sign in as a guest and create a name. Hop on over to Contact Talk Radio into the chat room, and I will keep a close eye on the chat room. I'm in there right now, hanging out with the CEO of CTR, and I'll watch for your questions as they come in. So just hop on over to contacttalkradio.com. You can click on Listen Now. You can also listen in through that feed as well if you'd like. And I'll do my very, very best to keep an eye on the chat room to get any questions that you may have out there, because I know a lot of you do, and it's better than sending me an email, I think, and you guys can all collaborate, so give it a try. All right, of course, like I said, Clif is my guest tonight. Let's get Clif back in here with me. Clif, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Now, I wanted to ask you, did you watch, did you keep close tabs on what was going on at the G20 by chance?
Yeah, I haven't watched any video from it or anything, but I do get feeds from various different information sources. I read them as text in my Vortex program.
Yes. And did you find it quite interesting of what was kind of agreed upon with the whole economic agreement to regulate and put companies under these strict guidelines. And basically, from what I'm understanding, they said that they've created a global economic regulation platform, in a sense. Is that what...
It's a good understanding of it, yeah. It's a framework, as they usually describe it in these things, from which other specific policies can be implemented.
Yes.
And in that sense, one can think of it at an even broader level as a reform movement beginning very much like the tacking of the 20 demands or whatever it was by Martin Luther on the church door. It's a reform movement of a very entrenched, ingrained religion.
Yes.
And it's going to run into a certain amount of opposition.
Yes. It's a little scary, in my opinion, too.
In terms of it being a new regulatory authority? Or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
But there's always another issue there, too, and that is, can they pull it off? It's one thing to come out and frighten people or, suggest that we're going to do this or even get laws to affect it. It's another thing to be able to effectively regulate it.
Right. Oh, that's true. I had mentioned to you that there has been, I've been getting these little reports out of communities from all across the nation, that small communities have kind of put together these little co-op units, these little community-ran stores with kind of their own made-up currency, and everybody kind of donates to the store, whatever it be, with clothes or food or what have you. And they've been stocking the shelves fantastically because so many people have been kind of helping out with it. And it's been going quite well for them, in a sense. And I'm wondering if, as time goes on with the economy the way that it is, if more of these are going to spring up, and what kind of real consequence that they will face by the powers that be, if you will, if they really start having some success, because they don't want anyone to have success like that right now.
Well, that's true about the powers that be being a little bit irritated by success at that level. If recent events in Argentina and previous history in such places as France or Algeria or other colonies, it can be an example, then the currency collapses have a tendency to expose an already thriving gray market that lives on top of a black market. And usually we find, if we look close enough, of course, that the authorities are themselves involved in the black market level. And so it's kind of like we have the officialdom supporting the war on drugs at the upper end by taking your tax money, and then also benefiting by running the organizations that deliver the drugs themselves.
Yes.
Feeding at both ends of the trough, so to speak. In the instance of the gray market, though, and the success of the small local enterprises, these are going to be key elements as the pressures of the dollar are affecting our larger just-in-time supply system.
Yes.
And at that point, that the just-in-time supply system, something we've been tediously building these last 30 years of globalization, at the point that it cracks, we're going to find that officialdom matters a lot less than we'd imagine.
Yes.
Because without the resources, without the tax money and the theoretic wealth that's implied by the ability to tax and spend, such organizations as FEMA simply can't exist.
True.
They can't purchase anything once the dollar crashes. We're not going to have vast quantities of people donating all this time and energy for free.
Yes.
So it's going to be a different world under those circumstances. And I think that the officialdom, to a certain extent, won't matter as much as we might think now.
Yes. Now, if the dollar does crash, if it completely collapses, that's going to be very bad